Want to tell you a quick story about my buddy Eric. He recently purchased a beautiful home in New Tripoli. It has a nice little creek that runs through it, and it's lovely. But where there's a creek or a river, there's probably a flood zone, and that's the case with Eric's home. FEMA has established flood zones, and the mortgage insurance industries use FEMA's flood maps to determine whether or not a property sits in that flood zone and needs flood insurance. But here's the thing, FEMA's flood maps, they're 2D, so it's kind of like an aerial looking down, and they don't take elevation of the property into consideration. So you could have a property that's in a flood zone when you look down from aerial, but that home might sit atop a large hill, so even though it's in close proximity to the water source, it's actually out of the flood zone based on the elevation. So in the case with Eric, he reached out to a local land survey company and asked them to come to his house and do something called an elevation certificate. So this elevation certificate then shows the level of the flood zone and then the level of the lowest floor in his house, which in this case would be the basement floor. And that elevation cert shows that his house, the entire structure, including the basement floor, is out of the flood zone. So now we have to take that elevation cert document, send it to FEMA, do something called a LOMA, letter of map amendment, and then FEMA basically permanently changes their map for his property to show that the structure sits out of the flood zone. So that's an elevation cert and why it matters if your house sits in a flood zone.